Today we're going to be focusing on a study that looked at people over 50, and it compared different types and blends of exercises and how they impacted the reduction of visceral fat mass. This is the potentially dangerous fat found around our belly that lies in between our abdominal wall and our organs. Now we are going to look at this study to see how you can lose visceral belly fat the fastest way possible, even over 50. Now I suffered from belly fat at 30, as you can see by this picture of me holding my son, and I say suffered because abdominal obesity is the primary factor in the diagnosis of metabolic syndrome, along with insulin resistance, hypertension, high triglycerides, and low HDL cholesterol. It was a year-long study with 78 people, and while they called them seniors, some of them were a few years younger than me at 50, and the rest of the group ranged between that and 70. They all suffered from metabolic syndrome and were moderately obese. Now, a lot of these studies are done strictly on waist measurement, whereas with this study, they did both the waist measurement and a DEXA scan. Now, with the DEXA scan, they were able to really see what was visceral fat loss and what was subcutaneous fat, which is the less harmful fat between our skin and muscle. One of the things they did well in this study is diet, because you can't really accurately compare different types and intensity of exercise unless everyone is on the same good diet. The way they accomplished this was to have them all live in residence for the first 3 weeks of the study, where they had daily classes and workshops on diet and nutrition, along with coaching for their fitness training. Now, while the meal plans were personalized, the macro split was the same for everyone, with protein being 15 to 20%, fats 30 to 35%, and the remaining calories were carbs. For exercise, they broke them into 3 groups: a high-intensity resistance training along with moderate-intensity endurance training group, another group that did just moderate-intensity resistance and endurance training, with the final group doing moderate resistance training and high-intensity endurance training. For resistance training, all groups did 3 sets of 10 reps for 8 exercises, with the high-intensity group lifting 70% of their 1-rep max and the low-intensity group doing 30%, 4 times a week. The endurance exercise was done daily. Again, the intensity was 30% for low and 70% for high, but this was of their VO2 max. Now, all 3 groups lost a substantial amount of central body fat, with the high-intensity resistance training moderate endurance group losing the most, up to the 3-month mark of the study. Now, the researchers feel they know why this happened, and we're going to go into that in a minute, as it has a real-world application for us, because at this time, all of the participants of this study were back in their homes. In all the groups, all the major markers for metabolic syndrome improved. Heart rate, triglycerides, and blood glucose all lowered, with HDL cholesterol raising up, and 25% of the participants no longer needed blood pressure medication. Up until the 3-month mark, the high-intensity resistance with moderate endurance lost the most visceral fat. After this, the moderate resistance with high-intensity endurance training group started to lose more. The researchers felt this was because of non-compliance. They had a little over 50% non-compliance with this group, training about half of what was required. Now, this was still a fair bit, as the original program had them training over 2 hours a day, and they stated that they preferred to do the lower intensity exercise, skipping out on some of the high intensity exercise. Even with this, by the end of the study, the 2 groups with the high intensity training lost close to the same amount of visceral fat. For us, I see parallels. We might know what we need to do, but we have a lot better odds of doing it if it's something we enjoy. Now, for fastest results, high-intensity weight training with moderate endurance exercise is the way to go to lose the most visceral belly fat. If you don't enjoy high-intensity exercise, you'd be better off cycling it with periods of lower intensity, or at the very least, some form of consistent, progressive, low-intensity exercise, as all of the groups lost some belly fat and improved their health. For best results long-term, we need to choose something we enjoy, so that we can keep working out while having fun. This is Lawrence from Fit and 50. We'll talk to you again in the next one.